Hello, welcome to my channel, Becoming Bev. Today we're going to talk about international travel during COVID. I'm going to explain to you what we had to do in order to travel, what it was like once we got there, and also as a bonus, I got to check off a bucket list item. If you've watched any of my bucket list videos, about 5 years ago, I created a bucket list with 100 things on it and spent the next 4 years traveling around the world checking things off of this bucket list. I hadn't got to check anything off since last year in March. And finally on this trip, I got to check off a bucket list item. So stay tuned and you'll see what that item was that I got to check off. It was pretty spectacular. Every year in January, my daughter and I take a trip together someplace nice. It's typically a Christmas gift for her. And since she moved to Missouri, it's really cold and icy and it gets pretty miserable there in the winter times. Misty begins craving a little bit of sunshine and I'm happy to help her out with that. Last year we went to Belize and this year we went to Exuma, Bahamas. The timing on this trip worked out really good. When I arrived in Atlanta, Georgia, my van developed a fuel leak and had to go into the shop for a repair. That repair took 6 days and just happened to be the exact amount of time that we were gone on this trip. I called the morning of our return to check on the van and she was done and ready to be picked up. My daughter Misty planned this trip. She loves planning travel and I love just showing up. Now, first of all, before we were allowed to travel, we had to have a COVID test within 5 days of our travel. We got that, and then once we arrived at the hotel, we also had to have another COVID test. We stayed at the Grand Hyatt Bahamar in Nassau, Bahamas. When we checked in, we were escorted straight to the clinic for a COVID test, and then we were escorted to our room, and we weren't allowed to leave our room until our COVID tests came back negative. Once those tests came back negative, they brought us up an armband, and we were free to roam the property. Of course, still social distancing and still wearing a mask when it was appropriate. Before we could travel, we also had to apply for a travel visa, and that travel visa was $60. It also included travel insurance, and again we had to show our negative COVID test result in order to get approved for that. The hotel had just reopened in December and it was kind of eerie walking through the casino of the hotel and basically seeing it almost empty. Hotel staff was very thankful to be back open again, and it's been a rough time for them. Anyone in the hospitality industry that depends on international tourism, I'm sure, is hurting. So the Grand Hyatt Bahamar is a resort hotel. Now, typically when I travel, I don't choose resorts to stay at. I like a little more adventure, but Misty was craving just someone bringing her drinks on the beach and laying out in the sunshine. So we spent 2 days at the Bahamar. One of the things the hotel does is they're a part of a flamingo rehabilitation program. So twice a day, they take the flamingos out for a flamingo walk, and they end up in a little grassy area. And they invite people that are staying at the hotel to come along and be a part of that. Now, once you get to the grassy area, they ask you not to approach the flamingos, but just sit there. And if the flamingos are interested, they'll come over and hang out with you. The very first morning, I got dressed up. I wore this pink dress, and I thought the flamingo was going to climb on top of me at one point, and I just started laughing, and I thought maybe I shouldn't have worn the pink dress. But as you can see, Misty got a little flamingo attention too.
For spending the morning with us.
Have you guys
They
gotten
love
the chance
it,
to
we
see
love
the
it.
aviary?
We haven't.
Thank you,
You
Mom.
haven't
Look.
seen the aviary?
Mom, look.
Ah!
Misty and I traveled to the Bahamas along with her friend Jackie that lives near San Diego, California. It was us 3 girls on this trip. The hotel had a beautiful grotto area with a gorgeous aquarium, and you could sit in the water and just watch the sharks and the turtles and all the different fish. I was mesmerized by this fish aquarium and could have spent hours sitting there watching them. The hotel also had a bird aviary, and we were invited to come in and feed the parakeets. The birds in the aviary especially liked Misty. The hotel also provided stand-up paddleboards and kayaks for our use. We took advantage of that. The week that we were there in the Bahamas, Bernie Sanders went everywhere and even popped in to see us. We left Nassau, went to the airport, and took Flamingo Air over to Black Point. It's a very small island, only about 8 miles long. And the airport was just a teeny tiny one-room building. Our host, Ida, picked us up, kind of pointed out where to buy groceries and if we wanted a liquor store, where that was at. She dropped us off at our Airbnb, and we rented a golf cart to use while we were there for the next 4 days. When we arrived, we decided to stock up on groceries and to make a stop at the liquor store for a bottle of rum. Now, it's interesting, Black Point only has a population of about 400 people, so the bar was also the liquor store. So you walk up to the bar and just buy a bottle of rum. Our intention was to stop in just to buy one bottle of rum. I think we ended up being there about 5 hours. We met 3 people that were sailing around the Bahamas on their sailboat, so we sat and visited with them for a while. We also met a few of the locals. We met this jolly soul named Bunka, who we ended up hiring to take us out on his boat the next day. We also met DJ, appropriately named that because he was the DJ at the bar. And then we met another local named GT, who was quite the karaoke star. It was really fun to see my daughter having a good time and dancing and laughing and singing. She's been pretty stressed out with her real estate job and with taking care of our Airbnbs back in Missouri. So I just loved seeing her cut loose a little bit and have a good time. I was sitting there talking to the people from the sailboat, and they said, "Your daughter's up on stage singing." So I look over, and sure enough, there's Misty up there with the microphone, belting out a tune with DJ, and she doesn't really sing that well. No offense, Misty, but we all know it's true. And then she also got a little dance action in. The day we went out on the boat with Bunka, one of our first stops, we got to meet the Turtle Dude. You can find him on Instagram, and it really is Da Turtle Dude. So what he does is he takes a conch and opens the end of it with a hammer and pulls out the conch meat, and then puts it on a piece of wire. When he's tapping on the conch shells, the turtles know that it's feeding time and come swimming over. And it was so awesome to see him out in the wild. It was also the first time I was brave enough to dip my camera underwater. It said it's waterproof. It's a little bit unnerving the first time you actually do it. It worked out well having it underwater. I have an iPhone 12 Pro Plus. The only thing is you want to make sure that it's pretty charged up before you do that, because you're not able to use your charging cord for about 3 hours once you've dipped it. You'll get a warning that says there's moisture. Now, our next stop was a cool little cave area where we just got out and turned on the music and did a little dancing and just enjoyed the day and enjoyed our company. We arrived back at our Airbnb for a glorious sunset, and that night Bunka brought us lobster for dinner. The next morning I was up in time to catch a beautiful sunrise, and we had booked an excursion that day that had several stops on it. Our first stop was Pig Beach. This was my bucket list item: see the swimming pigs in Exuma, Bahamas. When we got there, we were pretty fascinated with the whole deal. And the pigs seemed very well taken care of. They were all tagged. Apparently, one of the local hotels brings its leftover food and feeds the pigs. They have a vet that watches after them to kind of help take care of them. We saw shelters built a little bit further up the beach, so the pigs had plenty of shade, and apparently behind the shelter they also had a mud pit that they could go hang out in. But they seemed pretty happy to come and hang out with us, and we were the only ones there, which made it even more spectacular. He's attracted to your little piggies. He's gonna gnaw back. Pig Beach and then headed for a beautiful sandbar. It was pretty cool. The sandbar only shows up during low tide, and it was pretty cool to see only our footprints on the beach. And again, another stop where we were the only ones there. Next, we took the boat over to Compass Key, where we got to meet some very well-fed, well-behaved sharks. These are nurse sharks, and they reside at a little private island. You pay $10 per person to stop there, and you can hang out with the sharks as long as you like. We also stopped at a little sea aquarium and got to take advantage of some snorkeling. Our next stop was Bitter Iguana Key, where we got to see the Bahamian rock iguanas. And of all the things we did between the pigs and the sharks, the iguanas were a little bit creepy. At least at first. It took a little bit of getting used to, and then once you got used to them, it wasn't quite so bad. In fact, it was kind of mesmerizing. And then our last night in the Bahamas, we got to go back to the bar where we met DJ and Bunka, and GT was there, and we ended the night with some karaoke. I hope you enjoyed coming along on our little trip. I hope you're inspired to do a bit of international travel. It's an interesting time to do it. By the end of the trip, we ended up with 3 different COVID tests. We had the one before we went, the one when we checked into the hotel, and then we had to have another COVID test to re-enter the US. All in all, it was worth it. It felt good to be out there traveling again. It was wonderful to spend time with my daughter and to get to know her friend Jackie even more. It was great to hang out with some of the locals on Black Point. And again, it was beautiful to see my daughter having fun. So if I can answer any questions for you, I'm happy to. You can find me on Instagram at BecomingBev1. If you enjoyed this video or any of my other videos, please hit that like and subscribe button. It helps me out, and I appreciate you being here. You keep watching, and I'll keep posting content.